the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one for the man. I'd like to welcome all of you here tonight. We're continuing our series, and tonight is choosing a life mate by Michael Gouda. He is originally a pharmacist. He's still a pharmacist, I believe, but I think he decided to do like kind of something additional on the side. It's not a career
A little
change,
something. No,
but it's
not a
an
career change.
interest. It's really interest. It's a wonderful interest, and he's doing amazing. And he decided to do this even academically. So I said it would be a good opportunity, Mike, that we have you with us. And I have, you allow me to disclose that I have known you for
Absolutely. I was going to
I've known
say.
Mike for a long time. For a long time. He was not that tall.
Very long.
Him and his family, his lovely wife. And are you going to talk about yourself? Or
Yeah. I'm going to give.
Perfect. So
You were in there too.
Okay.
So
I'm going to leave him to talk about and give this introduction.
Absolutely.
So we're excited, Mike, that you are here with us tonight. So please join me in giving Mike a
Thank you, Abuna, so much. Thank you guys so much for having me, and love. Just go ahead. Absolutely. Thank you for having me here, and I'm hoping we can kind of do like a discussion thing that we all can take part of. I'll start off with telling you a little bit about myself, right? So I came here to Canada when I was about 9 years old. I can't even tell you what year that is. So I've been here for a long time. I've been here since it was St. Athanasius, not this whole area. We used to sneak in here, don't tell Abuna, when it was still being built. So we've been here a long time, and grown up in the church, grown up in the gym, the whole thing. And what I wanted to tell you was my marriage journey, right? Like Abuna said, I feel very strongly about this piece. And God's given me the grace for me to be able to learn a little bit more in depth in terms of the marriage and family, education. I don't necessarily want to do counseling or any of that. I do want to do the educational piece. So that's what I'm learning, right? So Abuna asked me to do this, and I said yes. Even though earlier today I was like, why? So it's like I'm just a little bit nervous, but we'll get through it. So for me, what happened was I was at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, right? And I did my first year. Yeah, I got some whoops. And I did my first year in science, and my aspirations were to become a pharmacist. Don't ask me why. It was not pressured. I was not pressured into it. My parents are both dentists. So I literally have nobody in the family, nobody who's a pharmacist, but I really wanted to do it. So I pursued it. And what I did was I did my first year at U of T Saga, and I did really well. And I applied to U of T Pharmacy, and I did not get in. My GPA was awesome. The critical thinking component was not good. So I guess I didn't get in. So I'm like, I was upset, and I went another year into my second year of U of T Mississauga, and I consulted with a bunch of people. And I said, look, my GPA is pretty solid. Let's take some courses that are like good and maybe useful for pharmacy, like I may be able to kind of just tick it off the list in terms of prerequisites. So I consulted with a few people and people in pharmacy, and they said, take physics, statistics, and 2 philosophies. So that's what I did. I took physics, statistics, and 2 philosophies. It was great, pretty reasonable workload, and I did pretty well. Come December, one of my buddies, who was studying in Albany College of Pharmacy. I don't know if you guys know where, in New York. Yes, woo-woo. Yeah. So he called me and said they're making an exception to accept people into the second year second semester of that program. Keep in mind, I'm in the second year, first semester of my program, and you're telling me I could go to the second year, second semester of pharmacy. So I'm like, yes, sign me up. What do you need? They said, your GPA is fine, but you're missing 4 courses: physics, statistics, and 2 liberal arts. I was like, stop it. She actually told me to shut up on the phone. And I said, no, I promise, I'm doing them right now. So up I left, and I went to Albany College of Pharmacy into the second year, second semester of my program, and I was in pharmacy. And guess what happened? This is why I'm telling you this whole story. I met this beautiful girl. Her name is Raham. And she's from Ottawa, right? So literally, she's in school there. She's in her second year. She's going into second year, second semester. I don't know what happened, but honestly, it was just like we got to know each other. We got to talking, so on and so forth. And then we were able to, there was a connection. We studied together. We did so on and so forth. So that was great, right? I'm like 20, right? I'm young. I still do not have any education under my belt. We're off in this, place together. So needless to say, my parents and her parents were not like, yes, right? They had their reservations, and I understood it. It sucked at the time, but I understood it. Anyways, I had already applied to U of T pharmacy for that year because your applications are due like in October. So I didn't know I was going to do all this, right? So I went, and I really didn't want to come back and write the exam, the critical thinking paper, but I did. I came back, I said, that's the responsible thing to do. You paid for your application, you might as well go. I did. I wrote it reluctantly. And then I went back, finished my schooling, and I got in to U of T pharmacy. The one time I did not want to get in to U of T pharmacy. And I'm like, are you kidding me? All the time I would go to the mailbox and, you look for the big envelope. And I would look at that mailbox guy and the delivery person. Do you got a big envelope or is it small? I'm watching him like a hawk. And he had a big envelope. Thank God I got in and I moved back here. So Raham and I decided, you know what? This is not the right time. And let's not make it difficult because it's long distance, so on and so forth. So let's take a moment and let's focus on our studies and let's finish our studies and see how it goes, right? 4 years went by. We did like the happy birthday, happy new year, that type of thing. Nothing crazy, not too much contact. It was pretty simple, right? At the beginning, it was tough, but we got used to it, right? And we said, let's not put this in our minds right now. Let's just let it be. So 4 years later, she had rotations in Toronto. I had rotations in Toronto because I'm here. And we messaged each other, bang, bang, said, hey, would you like to get coffee? Got coffee. 1 week later, I met her parents. I'm like, let's not play around. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. The next week after that, she met my parents. And you're watching your parents, you're like, oh my God, did he smile? Did she get upset? You're concentrated, you're focused, right? So everybody was happy. And we were able to kind of move forward. Now keep in mind, I'm ready to work and she's ready to work, so on and so forth. We got engaged for about 9 months. We got continued courtship for about 9 months. And about 8 months after that, our engagement, and we got married. And the rest is history, right? That's the story, the long-winded story for my marriage journey, right? Now the question is, so we could, enough about me. What Why do people get married? And I'd love to hear some answers. Why is this thing a thing? Why do people get married? Yeah, Michelle.
Because we're expected to.
You're expected to, absolutely. Oh, I know. Yeah. But it's true, right? And we'll talk about some of the misconceptions and some of the things out there and society and so on and so forth. But why do we get married? I'd love to have a couple more answers. Yes. To make a family. Yep. Absolutely. That's part of it.
From the Bible perspective, this is what God created Adam and Eve to be together and be one.
From the Bible perspective, Adam and Eve to be one. Yes.
Because when you get old and you're by yourself, it doesn't sound good.
For loneliness, right? Absolutely. Yes.
I think it's a need that we as humans have, and I think it's a wonderful journey and an opportunity for two persons to come together and grow in every aspect and in Christ together as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a growth and it's a journey. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, for sure. So most commonly, people get married because they're attracted to one another, right? They have feelings and they want companionship, right? That's the most common reasons. In Western society, most people get married because they're in love, right? They're in love, right? And to also, like you said, overcome loneliness, right? To fall in love is an exhilarating, exciting feeling of closeness, intimacy with another human being. But on its own, right, it's not enough. On its own, that feeling of love, that wades through time, right? So it's not enough. And it may be, for most people, or some people, deep and secure love actually comes after marriage rather than before. And we'll talk about what kind of love we're talking about, right? To be in love is to experience, like we said, a state of emotional exhilaration, right? To grow in love, we're talking about intentional acts of giving and caring. So, I got a question. One of the things that's always been said is, we love you, I love you, I love you. You've got that from the movies, and all the music starts to make sense, right? I love you, and so on and so forth, and these loving feelings. The I love you and that feeling, we said, is not enough for the basis of marriage, and the I don't love you anymore is not a valid excuse or option for divorce as well. Like, it goes both ways. Who knows what the Greek word for love is?
Agape?
Sorry?
Agape?
Agape, yes. So there's actually several words for love that are used in the Bible, or different iterations of it. But agape is the one, thank you for saying that one, is the one that I really wanted to speak about. Does anyone know the definition of agape?
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love, that's part of it. Absolutely, that's part of it. I'll tell you, okay? Listen to this definition. Love is the selfless concern for the welfare of others. Love is the selfless concern for the welfare of others. Now, that just says something. When I read that, I was floored, right? Because there's two instances in there that says it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with what I'm receiving, and it has all to do with what we're giving. Selfless, i.e. not myself, and others. It's like two words in there just to really hammer down the point. Selfless concern for the welfare of others. And that's what Christ-like love is, right? And that's kind of what our goal is. That's what we want, right? So Christ-like love. So, marriage, it's this thing that everybody wants, some people want, and it's seen as this, we want to get it. But who would agree with me that marriage is easy? Marriage is easy. No. I heard something recently where I thought it was really, really fitting. Marriage is like when I don't know about you guys, but with me, if I'm buying something for my kids, right, I am always checking the assembly instructions, right? If someone says simple assembly required, I could do that. If it starts saying that, heavy assembly required, I'm out. Professional help needed, right? So I'm not about that. Marriage is heavy assembly required. Marriage is heavy assembly required. It's not easy. It's not intuitive. It's not something that you could be good at just randomly or by accident. Okay? So there's a lot of assembly that goes into it. And the work that you need for a good marriage starts long before the wedding day. And that's kind of what I wanted to say is it starts now, right? Long before the wedding day, do we need to get ready if we are going to get married, right? And that starts two ways, and we'll talk about that. Sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but there's these guys, some of my friends, they'll take a look at this assembly, they just throw away the instruction manual. I'm all about that instruction manual. I put the stuff the same way as the picture. I've got to have it exactly the same. Some people are like, I'm an engineer. Stop it. Just put it together. And then they get surprised when there's some pieces that are left over, or some parts don't fit, or they can just wing it, right? That's not the goal generally for marriage. All right, so let's jump in. I'm not going to say anything that is like completely earth-shattering today, but if this is new for you, awesome. If this is not, I hope that there's something that's in here that's potentially helpful, right? In terms of your journey, okay? And also in terms of where we're going with this. So one thing that marriage is not. So I think we should start with what marriage is not, and then we'll talk about what marriage is, and then we'll talk about how we choose that life mate, so that we know what our goal is, right? Marriage is not just finding a companion to take away my loneliness, right? It's not finding somebody I'm attracted to. What's wrong with these? What's wrong with, it's not just about wanting children. Why is it not? Why is it not just that? I mean, that's a good byproduct, but why is it not just those things? Any ideas?
If you love your children and not love your wife.
Yes. Yeah. So that's taking us a whole tangent. Yep.
It's too much for one person to take on?
Yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely. We're not expecting this out of the other person, right? Remember agape? Is it about the other person? Or is it about what I'm doing? And vice versa, right? But here's the thing. Don't these things change? Don't these things change? A person that's attractive, right? I mean, I've lost all my hair. I've got an excellent beard, but I've lost all my hair. Why God didn't just put it on top of here, I'm not sure. But I've changed.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. But things change, right? It's not about just leaving my family because I want to be on my own. It's not what marriage is, right? It's not about wanting someone to have feelings for, and they have feelings for me, right? And we'll talk about that in terms of the needs. Can someone fulfill all my needs? Not necessarily. All these things are nice, but that's not what marriage is all about. right? Because they'll fail every time if this is all we're looking for, right? Attractive people change. That companion is not going to be around all the time. They've got work. They've got, what if they're taking care of the kids? What if there's so many other things going on? Marriage sometimes has a way of turning the one into the one that drives you crazy, right? Over time, right? Sometimes that does happen. Turns the perfect one, right? Who's got a lot of faults, when we're dating, right? Or when we're in courtship, I should say. The girl could be saying something like, oh, he's so cute. He needs me to, clean up after him. And oh, that's cute, right? Or I have to remind him about everywhere he's got to be. In marriage, that turns into, why don't you clean up after yourself, right? Or why do I have to remind you about everything? Don't you know what we need to do? You get the gist of where I'm going with this? So marriage changes things. Nobody gets married saying that I'm going to divorce. Everybody gets married because they want it to work. Every single person wants it to work. But the scary part is things change. So it's important to know what our goals are for marriage, right? So, what is marriage? Marriage is a pathway to salvation, right? I've got to get a little bit churchy here because we are in church. And to be quite frank, it is important, right? It is the most important thing. Marriage is a journey. Marriage is a sacrament, right? It's centered around Christ and it's filled with the Holy Spirit. That's a fact, right? And marriage is a journey with your spouse and Christ, like you said, Tom, to leading to eternal joy and salvation. Marriage, I don't know, has anyone heard the triangle thing? Everyone heard that triangle? I'm sure everyone's heard the triangle. If you haven't heard the triangle, two self-centered people, right? They're focused on themselves, and Christ is in the middle. We're trying to get to Christ. As we get closer to Christ, we actually are getting closer to each other. And that is what it's all about. Because he's going to be in the midst of it all and builds a solid foundation. So, problems in marriage always start or occur when one person takes their eye off the prize, or it's all about me. That's when problems occur. People will always fall short. Even if you have the most perfect spouse, you're never going to meet all their needs, right? 24/7. So, it's all about finding the one, right? And the one being Christ, right? Central verse, if you don't remember anything at all from this entire thing, because I can't go on tangents, remember this. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. The start is the Lord. That's the one, right? So if we're focused on the one, that's how we find satisfaction in life. So, how do we do that? I'd love to get some answers. How do we focus on the one? Sounds like a trivial question, but how would you do it in terms of your journey? Yep.
Involve him in every aspect of your life.
Involve him in every aspect of your life. Examples? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Like when you're going through a problem, you talk to God about it before you talk about it with other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else? Yep.
Start small, and then you'll grow, and if you need help, ask God.
Yes, absolutely. Right? This could be different for everybody, right? And with your spiritual father, your father of confession, these are just opportunities of growth. But the idea is, a lot of people will say, how do I find the perfect person for me? honestly, it's all about first finding that number one priority. That's the start. And if you're close to Christ as you go along, the idea is you're kind of catching those, you could see his will more clear. You can literally know, you're more in tune with what he wants, right? And that's in my opinion, the number one step, right? I remember when I was with Reham in engagement, I have never been a better Christian in my life. I used to meet Abuna all the time. He's my father of confession, by the way. I used to meet with him all the time and say, hey, this is what's going on. How do we do this? How do we do that? That was like, because I wanted to know his will for my life. And that is the basis of it all, right? So in terms of how do we find that perfect person, the start is Christ. That's the start, right? And you become a little bit more in tune and you're able to see this more clearly, right? When we talk about this, we're talking of also submitting to what makes the Lord happy, like you said, right? Looking forward to doing things that put a smile on his face, right? Doing those things, serving, right? And really enriching yourself in God's word, Bible study, the whole thing, right? When you do this, the Lord changes you, right? He changes your hearts, your desires, and makes you more like him. And quite frankly, like we said, you're more in tune to see his will. Maybe, right, he changes your heart to see somebody you've known potentially for a long time and never looked at them that way, right? And potentially, it's now in a different light, right? That can happen as well. Like I said, in tune, to be in tune. So, now that we've talked about how to find the one, and that's our first priority, how do we find the two, right? I'm going to give a couple of misconceptions, and then some thoughts in terms of, and we can discuss this. This isn't necessarily, for everybody, or if you want to fight me on it, let's fight, right? But this is just stuff that I've pulled together from a few sources, okay? So, common misconceptions. This is important. Love is enough. We talked about that. It's not. There is a one and only for me, and if I miss him or I miss her, I'm doomed. That is wrong. Cohabitation before marriage. See, I really need to know if this person is compatible with me. So why don't we, listen to this, live together? I mean, we'll pay one rent. This is what the world is actually doing. We'll pay one rent, right? We'll save money. I mean, this is great. On top of that, we get to live with each other and I get to see what you do first thing in the morning and late at night and every little bit in between. Right? Why not? Right? We'll get to know each other better. Then we won't fail in marriage like everybody else. That is a misconception. And studies, by the way, very recent studies, have shown that cohabiting couples actually have a higher divorce rate than the regular population. That is fact. Right? All that getting to know each other before marriage, that backfired big time. And that's pretty bad because the regular divorce rate is already high. So for it to be even higher, that's absurdity, right? So that's, again, recent research, fact. Another misconception, choosing should be easy and effortless, right? I don't have to look for anybody, they just come to me, right? It's just gonna happen, right? One should choose someone to marry whose characteristics are opposite. This is a big one, right? Opposite of their own. That is a misconception, right? someone who's not like me, someone who's opposite of me. And lastly, supplementing our area of weakness. So if I'm a dominant person, I want someone who's a less dominant person. That's a misconception. An extrovert, I want an introvert. Another misconception, right? So these things, again, it's not going to be across the board, but these are actual, factual, researched bases that these are misconceptions that occur out there, right? So it's important to kind of know what's out there. So what do? Right? Some people play it really safe. They've got a 35-point list that a person's got to have all these things, or else no way, that's not the person for me. Right? 35. You're missing one, you're done. Cut. Right? And they go really, really slow. I gotta make sure. Right? And they feel like everything is perfect. Everything has to be, and we'll talk about this right closer to the end. And some people go the opposite way. They say, you know what? It's 50-50, let's be honest. Let's just give it a shot, and we'll see what happens. Right? For all the Arabic speakers, I'm not very good at the Arabic. Illa yahsal yahsal. If you feel, yeah, no hazard, as they say. Right? My Arabic's not great, but there you go. You got it out of me. So there's so much confusion that it's all led to this. People are getting married later in life with more reservations and with less success. Right? And that's what's happening. So, why is this happening? A couple of things. 100 years ago, by the way, this did not exist. This divorce rate and low satisfaction rate did not exist. Does anyone want to venture a guess? What happened between the last 100 years in terms of the dating scene? Social media? The way it's portrayed right now that, anybody watch Friends? Nobody watches Friends?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody put their hand up. I'm like, are you for real? I love Friends, but its message is incorrect nonetheless. But yeah, that's the issue, is that's what's become in our society, that's become the norm, right? And we'll talk about, we're not the norm, or we hope to not be the norm. We would like to be the few in that narrow gate scenario, right? So something to ponder. The last 100 years, it's not been like this. And in Western society, we've got a beautiful thing that we need and want. Instant gratification and the beautiful undo button. Control Z, right? Or what's your return policy, right? Who's a fan of Costco? I love Costco. I could buy this for 14 years and send it back, and they'll give me money for it. It's the greatest. We all look at the return policy. I mean, it's Amazon. It's like one of my favorite things. It's like, I'll try it. I don't have to go anywhere. It comes to me, test it out. Nah, I don't like it. Send it back. All I got to do is go to the UPS store. That's pretty awesome. Sorry?
They pick up from your house.
They pick up from my house. Like,
Not discovered.
I gotta tell my wife that. Oh my God.
You can schedule a pickup and you can pick it up.
But if you return too often on Amazon, they cut you off.
Really?
I have returned until now 99% of my purchases, and I'm not.
And you're fine? 99%?
Well, you have to be a Prime member.
Of course, yeah. That's easy, but 99%, what do you keep? Yeah. You're just buying it, test it out, send it. Yeah. Yes, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to say, in because I love Costco. I love Costco because I trust the product, not because of the return policy. I just want to continue to be faithful to Costco. So I just say
Hey, I love it.
because I had a talk about marriage once, and I used Costco as a sign of trust.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you're doing the other way, which is fine. That's good. The point I'm trying to make is the return policy and the undo button, right, is one of those things that I think it's ingrained in our society, right? And it's one of those things that let's try it out and see what happens. And if we don't like it, let's return it, right? So one thing I heard recently is if you're going to walk down the path that everybody else walks down and expect a different result, what are we doing? Right? What are we doing? The destination is the same, right? So we've got to ask more of ourselves. We've got to have a higher standard, and that's kind of what I wanted to kind of comment on in here. One thing that I did and Raham did when we were engaged is we used to actually pray, right, that God would break us up. If this was not His will, break us up. Literally. I know it sounds intense, but this is something that we did. We used to pray, if this is not your will, break it, don't give it to us, right? And I do that with a lot of things now. If this is not working or this isn't, just don't give it to us if this is not your will, right? So how do we choose a life mate, right? The first and foremost is we don't want to walk down the same direction like everybody else, right? My big thing is we've got to have higher standards for ourselves, right? Number one, religion. That's important. In the Bible, 2 Corinthians, it actually says, do not be yoked with unbelievers, right? And some may say, well, what about a little believer? Like a slight believer, right? Again, right, if we focus on that marriage is a union of three, and our goal is to get to Christ, you don't want to be pulled down by a weak believer either. You want to both be on the same page. Now, what if that person, right, we're going to get tons of questions, I'm sure. What if that person is Catholic or Protestant or so on and so forth, right? If they are an unbeliever, talk to Abuna, right? If they are a different denomination, the truth of the matter is there's an extra bit of layer that you guys have to work out. Is that necessarily something that needs to be done? Absolutely, right? But the key here is similar religious convictions. And what I mean by that is don't get pulled down. Our goal, our first priority is Christ, right? Never sacrifice the one for the two, right? What I will and won't do. Here's another thing that's been big time over the last bit. And even with my kids, I'm trying to get them to kind of learn at this point, and they're only in grade 6 and grade 3, right? Is life's changed, right? What people are doing in premarital, right, is not the right thing. Things that are not to be done before marriage, let's just say that. So we don't want to conform to the world. We are called to be different and to have a higher standard for ourselves, right? So careful with the things we do. Cuddling, kissing, touching. Things can, and if you watch any of these shows, it's almost like, what are we talking about? This is normal stuff, right? But it's not. It really is not. And there's a time and a place for everything. So to have a higher standard. I read somewhere, the devil tries their absolute best to get you into bed before marriage. And they try their absolute best to get you out of bed after marriage. And if you think about it, that's actually what happens, right? It's not the right thing, okay? My expectations for marriage, what I will expect. Again, higher standards. I'm not talking about a 37-point list. That's a big list. That's hard, right? Does someone else have a 37-point list for you? Right? Are you checking off every little thing on that list? So be realistic, but don't settle. Right? We've got to trust that God has what's best in store for us. Right? So that's also something to keep in mind. His plan is perfect, and as we continuously focus on Him and get closer to Him, His plan is revealed. Similar backgrounds and complementary needs. Now, this is a research thing. Decades of research has shown that marriage selection is best when the man and woman are similar in things. Age, similar. Interests, values, socioeconomic levels, education, that's usually what's best. It's not for every single person, but it's usually what's best. Okay? Complementary versus contradictory needs. This is a big thing too. Complementary is like both people enjoy social contacts, but one person's outgoing and another person's a little shy. That's complementary. It's fine. Contradictory is like one person loves to party and the other person just wants to stay home all the time. Again, it's not that these won't work, but you've got to realize you're setting yourself up for some conflict throughout, right? And it's something that needs to be talked about, right? Compatible personalities. Marriageability traits. Again, decades of research have shown. I'll list them for you. Take what you take, right? Flexibility. Common beliefs and values. A willingness to share intimate thoughts and feelings. Good communication skills. Appreciation for each other. A good sense of humor. Comfort in expressing emotions, right? An ability to work through problems and persist until there is a solution. You're not just throwing everything under the rug, right? These are marriageability traits. These are things that are important for success in marriage, right? It's good to remember that no one on earth can fulfill all your needs. It's just not going to happen, okay? A survey of 700 20-year-olds, they were asked what most people were looking for in their potential mate. Any venture of a guess what that was? Kindness. That is the number one trait. Kindness. The ability to be potentially approached without, like, you're going to get rejected, right? Kindness in every aspect of the word. Abuna Bishoy said this to us a long time ago, to Raham and I thought it was really beautiful. Love is a verb, right? Loving actions often create loving feelings. Marriage, no doubt about it, involves effort, risk, and times of difficulty, right? You guys know this, right? So these loving actions are super important. And remember, it's not about what we are getting, but what we're giving, right? I know I'm falling behind here on the time, so I'll try to wrap up here. One of my professors said something that I thought was incredible. He said, in marriage and even in engagement, we have preferred pronouns. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to be talking about pronouns? Are you for real? And he said it, and I thought it was really good, so I'm going to share it. In marriage and in engagement, our preferred pronouns are we and us. There's no I at all. It's we and us. And if you're going to say anything at all, say you And I'm not saying you are so bad, but what can I do for you? Giving, right? That's what selfless love is all about. That's agape. That's Christ-like love. So I really like that. We and us. I thought he was going to go somewhere else. And lastly, great qualities, right? Looking neat and attractive, right? Needless to say, includes what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to, or where I will go, right? We want to have higher standards because we are essentially, what are we attracting is an important piece, right? So the qualities that we put through and put ourselves in are important. Learn how to ask good questions and listen. You will be surprised, and Abuna will tell you, that one of the biggest things we do in premarital and postmarital, any exercise, is listening. Don't worry about it. Is listening, active listening. We actually engage in teaching other couples, which we are involved in with Abuna and others. We literally focus on listening. You'd be surprised how little we listen in time. So I think that's the great qualities: patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, right? All part of the fruits of the Spirit. Where do we find the mate? This is pretty easy.
Costco.
Costco's possible. One of the biggest things is this big word right here, propinquity, right? And that means close proximity. That's actually been shown to be one of the best opportunities for finding a mate, is to be in close proximity. Church, colleges, Christian groups, conferences. We don't want to go to these places just to find a marriage partner, right? But we can get involved in groups, right? And have interesting and pleasant people that don't necessarily need to lead to marriage. But if we're part of the group, right? You never know. As we continue to focus on the one. Online is a big thing these days, right? As long as we can meet them and interact regularly in person, I think that's good. Abuna, you're good with that? Now,
Me.
again, yeah, higher standards for where we want to be, right? Now, is Tinder or some of these other places where we want to be meeting, right? Again, higher standards, right? I'm hearing about meet and write, right? Coptic Match back in the day. I don't know if that's still a thing. But these are the places, those are places, right? As where we can find. One last piece, additional resources. I think the biggest thing here is that people are worried, and this is where I really, really feel passionately about this. People are worried when we find the two, we're doomed. What do we do, right? And when we find the two, how do I know if that's the right person? Well, number one, we've got to focus on Christ and we've got to heed his message, right? We've agreed to that, and we're going to be in tune with that. And the other person's doing the same. But it is not a bad idea for us to work on our marriage. A lot of people have this misconception, and postmaritally too. And we've just finally started to bend that curve where people have taken away the stigma of working on your marriage. Because the thing is, a lot of people say, because we're working on our marriage, that means something is wrong. That is incorrect. You're working on your marriage because it is the most important relationship you will ever have in your entire life. You work at work. You work at your business. Why in the world would you not work at marriage? So something that we did as well with Abuna, Prepare and Enrich. I love that program. Prepare and Enrich. It's like personality tests that you do with your priest. You both get a bunch of questions, a bunch of scenarios. You answer them separately. And then you get the answers and it's like tabulated. It's actually been shown to reduce the prospect of divorce by 30%. Why? Because you literally know the other person quote unquote, inside out. Right? Quote unquote. Right? You're never going to know a person completely. But if you do this, why not? Right? Why that stigma? Why does it have to be lovey-dovey feelings and all this? Well, clearly things they haven't worked out. Another book that we do with premarital couples, and we do it with postmarital couples, is Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. That's an awesome book. There is no way you're going to talk about the conversations that are in that book over a steak dinner just randomly. No chance those questions will ever come up, right? And it just gives you an opportunity to have that discussion. Again, this is the most important relationship you potentially will ever have. Why not work at it? So once you've found the two, or you're there, you're not on your own. You still have advice. You still have your spiritual fathers. You still have good friends, parents, and you still have opportunities where you can work on your marriage. So in conclusion, number one, find the one. God, Christ. Get closer and continue that pursuit and tap in. Tap in. Look to God through prayer, through Bible study, like we said, meditation, quiet time. Trust that He will lead you to the two, right? But He's number one. We've got to have a higher standard for how we're going to do things. We are not the world. We are just not the world. We've got to do it differently. The world, we've looked and we've seen their results. It is not good. How are we going to be different? Seek wisdom and input from parents, your father of confession. I would talk to Abuna all the time, right? Significant family members and good friends. And lastly, premarital enrichment is great. Postmarital enrichment is great. Why not enrich that marriage and have healthy time, good topics, good discussions, before we blow up into a fight, before we say things that we don't want to say? It's good to have those conversations. And there are things out there that can facilitate that. All right? Thank you guys so much for listening. And I know it's not all new stuff, but I hope it helped in some sort of way. Thank you guys. Wow. 10 o'clock? I'm so sorry.
We still have space if you want to have a few questions, comments.
Yeah, let's...
I like it when you say set yourself up for confidence.
For?
Once you decide to get married, set yourself up for God's confidence, which is actually wise.
Yeah.
To handle this conflict, because there's no relationship without conflict, right?
Absolutely. You're right. And to add to that is it's not necessarily that you're setting yourself up. You are preparing to potentially prevent a conflict. And if I'm able to have here's the thing. What would we rather do? Would I rather something's bothering me, like killing me, I sweep it under the rug, and then all of a sudden she does one thing and I blow. And then all of a sudden I bring back history lesson. All of it. Bang, 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 bang. Why? Right? And that's kind of where, if we're preventing it, something like this program, like for example, the Prepare and Enrich, fire. Why not? Right? It's an opportunity for us to prevent and to discuss things in a civil manner, much better than us losing our minds on each other. Yes? Did you have your hand up, Uncle? No? Come on now, let's discuss. Yes?
Okay, I have a question about the listening part.
Yes.
You have to both need to listen to each other. What if you see a good potential in somebody but they don't listen? How do you address that? Is there something that you can do, or you just take this as I'm out?
No. On listening, just straight up listening, Abuna, you're going to have to stop me at any point. But I'm going to give you my opinion, and if Abuna's got something to say, just interrupt me. But you're saying just listening? Look.
Listening is really important because you get to know the person
100%.
from that, right?
I'll give you some of the stuff that we've done. We've done a lot of postmarital. with other couples. And I will tell you the one topic that continuously comes up with couples, and I'm talking couples that have been married like 2 years and couples that have been married 10 years, 15 years, they are honest. That listening module is like the biggest thing. We just had a marriage retreat where we had one of my professors come down at Church of the Resurrection, which is down at here, Ontario, and Eglinton, here, Ontario. And literally one of the modules, and he was only here for a day and literally 2 hours. One of the things that he stuck in there and spent a considerable amount of time is literally talk to the person and turn your body and listen to what they said and repeat the act of listening of what you just heard to the other person. And you would be surprised, even like myself, everybody else. I've been married almost 13 years. Other people who've been married a long period of time, this was like the one thing that they, at the end, we were asking like feedback. What was it? It was really good that we listened to each other. That was like, I'd say 7 out of 10, right? But yeah, listening, it's learned, right? We have to also keep in mind, we come from 2 different families, and we are coming into one family, and sometimes in his family or in her family, nobody listened. So that's just what they know. But can it be learned? Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
So what if it is an issue in the courtship period? How to address it?
You're going to ask me? Stop playing.
Part of my question was that.
Now you're going to gang up on me?
Because I know you.
Say it again, Abuda. I was just...
What if I'm courting someone and I find that this is an issue with the person that I'm dating, that I'm finding problem that the person is not listening to me? How do I address this? So it's this like this is from the get-go. So there is a struggle
for like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I would
do I wait for the course? Do I
look, I'm all about like if this were me, I'm all about open communication, right? If we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this together. Now, if you're pointing out his faults or she's pointing out your faults all the time, that's exhausting, right? And nobody wants that, right? But if you're able to have that open communication where you have a safe place and a safe space, I would absolutely discuss it, right? And remember, Christ giving love is all about doing what I can for the other person. Discussing these things is an important part of how we discuss Christ giving love, right? And it's absolutely an open communication. That's what I would do. Now you tell them what you would do.
I would definitely I like what you said. You might, of course, I would do the open communication in loving and gentle way. But if I find that this is a persisting, and I find it's difficult, it's part of what you, I believe, mentioned, the compatibility in the relationship where it's not getting anywhere, like I address it maybe one time and a couple of times, but it's not getting, and the person maybe is not receptive of it, I would consider that this could be a flag.
For sure.
Yeah. This could be a red flag. If we address it, like I address it in a loving, kind way, definitely. Like instead of, by the way, you're not listening to me. I'm talking and you're not listening. He's gonna see this as a red flag, or she's gonna see this as a red flag.
Man, the pointing and everything. Oh my God.
Yeah. But trying to bring it up definitely needs to be brought up in a loving, kind way, in a gentle way, to get the other person's attention, and try to get it maybe 1 time, 2 times. If I find that it's persisting and it's standing in the way we communicate, I would consider this kind of a red flag.
Maybe the other person doesn't even care to change, but that red flag part.
So that's why I would address it.
Yeah.
I would, in a kind way, address it with the person, and maybe as Mike mentioned, get an involvement of a priest, a counselor, like a spiritual guidance, or we have counselors who are Christian counseling as well. We can involve this or that. Like, we do not need to be married to do this. We can do this when people are, and I've seen this. Maybe it's not common, but yes, it could be done. If I see good qualities in the relationship, and this is just one thing that is standing in the way, we can address it through spiritual guidance, through professional guidance in a Christian counsel, because there are few types of counseling that are available. I would go for the Christian counseling, not just any secular counseling. And work on it. If it works, perfect. If it doesn't really work, maybe we decide to go separate ways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Agreed. Yes.
So, where's the divide between courting and all these things that people learn about and you can learn about in these extra books that you might not discuss normally?
Yeah.
And you'll never know the other person fully, etc. And this is a suitable person for.
So I like what I heard this recently. I like you guys remember like manual cars, like first gear, second gear? Yeah. I've never driven one, right? But essentially, what I would say is, first gear is being in a group setting where somebody is kind of sticking out that potentially there's a chance, and you, so on and so forth, there's a chance you ask, you have that discussion, and you go into second gear, which is courtship, right? I think that the important part about courtship is that it's another word for dating, but it's not dating. It's not dating like the world wants us to date, right? And when we have that discussion and we have that courtship, we don't put ourselves in positions to fail, right? We're able to kind of get together on a deeper level. I think where you start to really, all through courtship, you'll know, right? You'll know priorities, right? You'll know at least if we want to progress, right? Is it all going to be perfect? No chance. Right? And that's like my thing is it going to be perfect? No. Is it going to be nice? Yes. Is it going to be I know for sure? I don't think so. Right? I always, like I said, I used to pray, if this is not right, break us up. If this is not your will, break us up. But as you go along, right, we did this, the saving your marriage before it starts, and prepare and enrich in engagement, right? And that's where we really deep, we delved deep, right? And we were able to, get our thoughts on kids, how many, where do we want to live, so on and so forth. You still talk about that stuff, but this really brings it a little bit deeper. So I found it to be very useful, but I'd say courtship engagement is where we started to really take that next step, right? And courtship, I'd say, I heard this recently and I like it. I would lengthen courtship and decrease engagement. I don't know if you agree with that. Maybe you don't, but that's kind of like, I hated engagement. I remember that specifically. My God. But that's just me, right? So that's just something that we were going to be engaged for like 12 months because the wedding venue wasn't available. And I'm like, but thank God we were able to find a little bit earlier and we just did it. So it was, just as we get closer, I'd say courtship engagement. Yes?
Do you have any recommendations or feedback for someone who may, for example, be a third party that's kind of close to people that are going through this process and, you know, confiding in you, or you know, maybe they're close to you, family or something, or a close family friend, for example, and you're noticing things that, not judgmentally speaking, but things that may seem like somewhat of red flags or some of the misconceptions that we talked about earlier.
Right.
Do you have any feedback or recommendations on how to, you know, respectfully convey those things, how to approach those topics?
Tell them to go to the enriched thing.
Say it again?
Tell them to go to the enriched.
Oh yeah, like, yeah, you could say something like that. I'll tell you what, what I've done, right? I've had parents of those guys, like my buddies, right, come and speak to me about speaking to them, right? And, you know, just saying like, you know, what are you thinking? Talk about it, so on. You know, uncle, sure, okay, fine, let me talk to them. Like, and we'll do it, right? And so I'll tell you what my experience was I literally would recommend what Micheline said, is for them to do something that deepens their understanding of each other, because it's the fastest way for me to be cut from their lives forever if I'm like, this girl is not right for you. If I say that, right, I will, I'm just going to be in the bad books, right? And do I really want to lose a friend? But at the same time, I could see the other argument. So what I've done is I've literally given them like, hey, this is a book that Raham and I have done that I thought was extremely helpful. Let me send you 2 to the house. Amazon. Right? Let me send you a couple. Or why don't we do it together? Right? If you guys want to come over and we'll talk about this stuff, you give an opportunity for them to have that discussion. But I have never gone to someone and said this person is wrong for you, or hinted at it. Maybe I've hinted, but I haven't gone and said it straight. I've just given them that type of advice.
I like this approach 100%. Sometimes, depending on the relationship, probably because I'm a priest and people expect this from me sometimes, or if someone has some knowledge or is able to guide in a kind way. But definitely the ultimate decision is I leave it to the people. But I could hint, this is something that probably needs to be worked out in your relationship. So this is the strongest that I would say, and I think this is a good enough sign if people are really want to listen. If they do not want to listen, nothing that you will say that they would listen to.
It changes the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
I think when it comes to conflict, you know, if you're going to live with somebody for, you know, say 50, 60 years, like the chances of there being no conflict at all is just next to impossible. But
impossible.
Yeah, it's kind of comment there I just had it, but you know, I guess it's kind of about how you manage it. And
absolutely. Yeah. No, the marriage makes things a little bit harder, not easier, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
I think it's not about not having a conflict, but it's, as you said, how to manage this conflict, or having the abilities to listen and to navigate through the conflict
Absolutely.
itself. And I believe another stats is that they say happy marriages are not those who do not have conflicts, but they are those where the couple have a way to handle and manage the conflict.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with that statement.
This is a very enriched statement, by the way.
Well, that's really good.
It's not mine.
Yes.
Me?
Oh, sure. Oh, sorry.
A very quick question.
Yes.
At our Egyptian culture, we should take the first step? The woman or the man?
Oh, who should take the first step?
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. You want my personal opinion?
Of course.
I'm all about the men stepping up. Right? That's just me.
Okay.
I don't know what the politically correct answer is, but I'm all about, Abuna Anthony actually has something that says how to be a good leader, right? So how to be a good leader, right? That's my thought. I don't think it's like the end of the world if someone, if a girl or woman says something, but I think that the men should step up, generally speaking. You good with that? Tub mic.
You talked about everything.
Yes.
Why you didn't talk about food?
Food?
Oh yeah.
Food?
I mean, come on, cultural differences, food, I think that for me, this is important.
Absolutely. Most men.
Who's cooking the meals you made?
Yeah, I mean, we do everything together, but we eat together. Who's gonna make the food? Myself?
That was so good.
Imagine مثلا في الصوم ما فيش فلافل.
Oh, that was good. I don't know if I have I don't have a comment on that. Yeah, that's something I guess you work out.
This was a funny question. But
Okay.
The real question is, so for me, I'm new to this country. I've only been here for a year. Okay, tamam. And there's something that I didn't know that it was considered until I came to this country, which is in Western world what I saw that if you مثلا marry your cousin or your second, third million cousin أي حاجة بتقرب لك تبقى حرام أو يعني what do أو خلينا نحكي سؤالين دول. Why do Western world think like this, and what do the church think about this? I just want to understand this concept.
Don't you?
Depends on where have you been before.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about. I just want to understand the Canadian Christian ideation. عشان بشوفه مختلف جدا عن ال Middle East Christian ideation.
Yeah, for sure. There's to answer that, I am going to plead the fifth. Abuna. That's definitely not mine. That's all you.
Actually, interesting enough, in one of the pre-marital retreat, I usually ask couples to introduce themselves and kind of share some fun fact. And one of the couple wanted to make a joke, and one of them says that this is my cousin. I'm marrying my cousin, and of course, like there was what's happening? The person was joking. My understanding, like the church is like in Egypt, it's common for cousins, second cousins, even first cousins to get married. And in Upper Egypt, it's pre-arranged where cousins are gonna get married, male and female, of course. My understanding that it's because that it's mainly more highly a Western thing, and one of the reasons that came to my awareness is because of the what do they call it? Like the genetic.
Genetics.
Whatever she said.
Yes.
It has to do with the genes. Like when relatives get married, this could produce a gene that is not healthy. Yes. So that's the main reason that this is happening, which is different than, of course, if you're reading Genesis, you would not find this issue in Genesis, but because it's the beginning of the world and all the exceptions are there, but with the increase of the population, this is one of the main reasons.
So it's basically a Western thing.
Western and genetic. Yes.
Combination.
I'm not sure if it's getting more awareness right now in the Middle East or in Egypt. Probably it is. Is it?
100%. Yeah, and I don't think, like my understanding is that it's not really a church thing, it's more of a medical and,
Medical,
and
yes.
for the future of the children and the family.
But it's common in Egypt for cousins to get married.
Not as much anymore.
I have some of my uncles and aunts, they are cousins. They're
Like the new one, like people getting
yeah,
married now.
the new ones, but like
Oh,
the
yeah.
generation
My cousins
say,
My cousins are married to their cousins.
yeah.
Yes.
It's a question back to your story.
Talk to
when
me.
you said that you went to study and you met her for him, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you got accepted, so you came back. And tying back to when both of them are closer to God, they get to hear God's voice. And you were praying that if it's not, just break it. Did you take that as a breaking sign? Like, how did you said it was 4 years, right?
Yeah. So
How did these 4 years come about?
those 4 years sucked. The 4 years was the 4 years. I didn't actually think about it. Now keep in mind, when I said if it's not your will to break it, that was definitely not in my like when I'm 20 years old in university together, right? Because there's no chance that my eyes are focused on God in that situation. And that's why I believe God is gracious in that he let me get into U of T pharmacy. So that's why I had to come back, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have come back. So when I say I was praying that if it is not your will, that is when we were about to get engaged. That is when we were about to get married, right? That's the time, because we're so focused on him and his will that if it's not right, don't do it. And I remember my wedding day was like, I was like, yes! I'm like, we made it. And I remember, I know it might not be like what everybody does and we got the lovey-dovey feeling, but I'm a guy, right? And I was really focused on that. Like, I was really focused on getting to the wedding day, and we did everything we can to be prepared. And do we not have fights? Absolutely not. We have tons of fights, right? We have conflict, but we deal with them kind of quickly, right? That's the goal. Now, sometimes it's not quickly, sometimes it's a big one, but we deal with it. That's part of life, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. Those 4 years sucked, but they were necessary. In my opinion, looking back, they were necessary. We didn't keep in contact in those 4 years. That's what we agreed to. It was good to just, because then it'd be hard. It's annoying, right? So that's kind of what we decided.
Not to keep contact?
We did not keep contact, yes. I know. But remember, we were talking about instant messenger back in the day. Does anyone know what instant messenger is? Yeah, that doo-doo-doo. And it's like, oh my God, she messaged me. Oh, my heart flutters. Yeah, we got international. My phone bill would have been... No, but at daytime minutes, oh, I got to call you at 5.
Ring me if you want to call.
You guys remember that? Oh my God.
You see, we take these things for granted nowadays. Like
Yeah, now
the
it's
messaging
FaceTime.
and the FaceTiming,
It's different.
the minutes and
the missed call.
That's just my story. I thought it was important that you guys kind of know that, but keep in mind, everybody's going to have a different story, right? So.
Do you think all the new technology make long distance dating easier?
Oh, good question. All the new technology make long distance dating. Honestly, I would love to see some sort of thoughts on, or like research on that piece. I don't know what's out there, especially like the new, like you're right, like FaceTime and so on and so forth. But I don't think anything takes the place of being together face to face. I think COVID showed us that, right? Like, if you've been on meetings on Zoom, like, they're annoying after a while, right? It's better to, like, I don't know about you, I enjoy coming back face to face and seeing everybody. Not that I had a choice. I'm a pharmacist. I had to go, but to see people like, you know, even my staff members and whatnot, it was good to be together. And that's what I hear from others too. So I don't know if long distance, what are your thoughts, Abuna?
Personally, maybe I'm a bit harsh in this, but I see nothing replaces the face-to-face. So even if you do video chat 24/7, I don't believe this replaces or this. It's better than nothing, but this does not take away from the face-to-face, in-person encounter, because this is when you see a lot of things that the digital world does not allow you to see.
Absolutely.
So I usually tell couples who are having long distance relationship, do your best. I know it might be depending on where each one is, but do your best to see and meet one another if you really care and want to make this work. And if you have been dating for long distance 5 months, I would consider this maximum 1 week, or even less, because it's not the same as face to face. This is what I've experienced.
And just, you remember that weird word, that propinquity? I can never say this word. That literally states close proximity, right? I think that's actually been one of the markers. Yep. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, but technology's come a long way, you're right.
You're gonna put VR set one day.
Yeah. You see the stuff on Apple Vision Pro that I keep seeing on, now that I said it, it's gonna come up on my feed all day. It's for sure. Any other questions, discussions? We can talk if you guys have any questions at all. I'd love to share with you anything that I have gone through. But thank you guys so much for having me. Awesome.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing this wonderful